I know that passing transcription tests is a very difficult task for most transcribers. I can't give you answers to all transcription tests under the sun, but I will give you a step-by-step guide and tips that you can use to pass any transcription test you attempt. Now, there is no guarantee that you'll pass all transcription tests using the techniques I'll mention in this video, but the probability of you passing will be very high if you follow them. Remember that passing transcription tests is one of the ways transcription companies test your transcription skills, so you can't really avoid them. This is a 6-step guide plus a bonus step that I have added at the end of this video, so follow through to the last step in order to know how to pass any transcription test. And before we get started, here is a kind reminder to give this video a thumbs up so it can spread to as many people as possible. Now, assuming you already have all you need in terms of equipment and transcription software, the first and most important step is to read the guidelines and instructions provided. By now you already know that where there is a transcription test, there are guidelines or instructions that you should follow when transcribing. Here is the thing: when you give someone a job, let's say you want a tailor to make for you a certain dress, you will give them instructions like how long the dress should be, the design you want, the material you prefer, and so forth. Now, if the tailor doesn't follow your guidelines and instructions, you will end up with a dress you don't like at all. Consequently, you will either request the tailor to remake the dress as per your specifications, or you will just abort mission and be on your way to find a tailor who can give you what you want. Now, that is exactly what happens with transcription companies. If you don't read and follow the instructions given, the company has the right to reject your application or ask you to try again. So read the guidelines and understand what it is you are required to do. I can assure you with 100% certainty that you will fail any transcription test you attempt if you don't take time to read guidelines, or if you just skim through the guidelines without actually internalizing them. After thoroughly going through the instructions, highlight the following parts. The part where they tell you the type of transcription required. Is it clean verbatim, also known as intelligent verbatim, or is it full verbatim, also known as verbatim? Highlight where they talk about speaker labeling. Do the instructions say that you should label the speakers using the first name only, or both names, or just use interviewer, interviewee? Highlight that part. It's important. Also highlight the part where they talk about transcribing filler words, repetitions, stutters, stammers, and false starts. This is very important, so highlight it twice if you can. In addition, highlight the section where they tell you if to use American English spelling or British English spelling. If this part is not there and the company is based in the US, Canada, Australia, etc., you'll use American spelling. If it's based in the UK, use British spelling. Lastly, highlight the part where they've talked about transcribing numbers, numerals, etc. In my experience, the sections I have mentioned are usually the most important, but you can highlight any section that you feel is important. Just make sure you highlight what I have mentioned first. You're probably wondering, why am I highlighting certain sections? It's because you will need to refer back to them at a later stage. Now that you're ready to do the transcription test, the second step is to listen to the audio or watch the video, because a transcription test can be audio or a video. So play the audio or video and just listen to it from beginning to end before you start typing. Now, if the audio is very long, you can choose to listen to just a portion of it, though I know that most test audios are usually a few minutes long. When listening to the audio, note down the speakers in the audio. Write their names down if they have been mentioned. If the speakers in the audio work at certain organizations, note down the names of those organizations as well. So for instance, if the audio is an interview between Larry Madowo, the CNN international correspondent, and Tess Ogamba, a digital entrepreneur, note this down. The next key detail to note down is what the interview is about. What's the subject matter? What is Larry and Tess talking about? Is it youth employment? Is it youth unemployment? Is it content creation as a business? Is it the Premier League? Is it women empowerment? Or they're talking about the digital economy? Other important details to note down as you are listening to this audio or watching the video for the first time is names of people mentioned in the video, even if they are not the speakers, places, companies, brands, and organizations that are being mentioned in the video. So if Larry and Tess mention a specific team in the Premier League, let's say Arsenal, write that down. If they are talking about automotive companies and they mention Tesla and then mention Elon Musk, write it down. So what you're doing in this step is writing down key details that are extremely fundamental for the success of this transcription process. At this point, you should not be worried about getting the spelling right or hearing the correct thing. Just jot down what you hear the way you hear it. If you know the spelling of something, well and good. But if you don't know, don't bother looking it up at this stage. You will do that later. So you've read the guidelines and highlighted the most important section. You've listened to the audio or watched the video and noted down key details. It's time to move to the next step. Step number 3, start typing. The real work has now begun. So click play and have a go at it. The goal is to create the first draft. Here you are not trying to spell things right or to replay parts of the audio that are not clear. If you don't hear something the first time, don't rewind the audio, just keep going. Leave blanks if you want. Remember, you've already listened to the audio, you know the speakers and what they are talking about. So just type what you're hearing. As you type, you are also labeling the speakers. Indicate when it's Larry speaking and when Tess is speaking. Remember, the goal is creating the first draft. You are not worried about accuracy, sentence structure, spelling, or anything other than typing what you're hearing as fast as you can. How long you will take to do this will depend on the length of the file you are working on. By the way, if you want to gauge your transcription skills, this is the stage to do that. Let me give you a hint. A complete beginner will only manage to capture like half of the speech. So the transcript will have a lot of missing words, phrases, and statements. And this is very okay, by the way. However, you should try to capture at least 3/4 of the speech in your first draft, and you should not spend a million hours doing this. This will take you just a few hours at most. So try to create the first draft in the shortest time possible because you will need time for the next steps. So, how are you finding this video? Let me know by hitting the like button down below. It means the world to me. Moving on swiftly to step number 4. You have your first draft. Now it's time to work on the second draft. Remember, each draft should be better than the first one. So here you're not doing a lot of typing. Your goal now is to fill the gaps you left when creating your first draft. You are also correcting speaker labels, researching some words, and organizing the transcript. So what you do is play the audio from the very beginning and listen carefully as you read through what you've typed. When you see a spelling mistake, correct it. Make sure the speaker labels are accurate. Don't indicate on the transcript that it's Larry speaking, yet it's Tess who said that part. Speaker mismatch is a grave mistake in transcription. Another thing, go back to the guidelines, to the speaker labeling section that you highlighted, and confirm that indeed you have correctly labeled the speakers. If they've instructed you to use interviewer, interviewee, make sure you do so. Don't be a smartass and use the labels Larry and Tess, because the person who will be reviewing your work will not ignore this very obvious mistake. So if they say instead of writing the speakers' names, write interviewer, interviewee, or speaker 1, speaker 2. Then make sure you are following those instructions. Do not divert and write whatever you want. As you are listening to the audio and typing what you missed, be checking on your spellings as well. Do you remember in the first step, we talked about the speakers mentioning Tesla? Don't just assume that the spelling you know in your head is the correct one. Quickly type that into the Google search bar and copy and paste the correct spelling from the Tesla website. Do that for all names and unfamiliar terminologies mentioned in the audio, like Elon Musk, CNN international correspondent, etc, etc. The idea is to make sure that most of your spellings, if not all, are verified, and this is done by conducting a simple Google search. So something else that you should do in this step is to go back to the guidelines, the highlighted sections. Read the instructions on transcribing filler words, stutters, stammers, repetitions, and false starts. Now, if they've told you that things like false starts, repetitions, stammers, and filler words should be removed or typed in a specific manner, put this in mind as you listen to the audio. The instructions for this particular section can vary from client to client, company to company, so I can't tell you exactly what you should be adding or removing, and that is why you highlighted that particular session so you can revisit and just refer. So just read the instructions and implement them. Remember, if you overlook this, you will fail the test, because this is one of the most important guidelines that most transcription companies expect transcribers to follow. So number 4 is done and dusted. Now we are on to the 5th step, which is the first round of proofreading and editing. Your second draft is definitely cleaner than the first one, isn't it? So this should be very easy. Now at this point, you have to keep in mind and keep reminding yourself that transcription is all about accuracy and correct grammar. So in this stage, you will focus on making sure there are no mishears, no spelling mistakes, or any other grammatical errors. Now, as you do this, you are also looking at anything you might have missed in stage 4. Or step 4. By the way, mishears are the worst mistake you can ever make in transcription, and unfortunately they are the most common mistakes made by both beginner and experienced transcribers. So a mishear is whereby you incorrectly hear what a speaker is saying and you end up typing the wrong thing. For instance, a speaker says, "Don't go overboard," but you hear, "Don't go over the road." That's a misheard statement. Now, to avoid mishears, avoid rounding off statements, and do not try to fill in the gaps by guessing what the speaker is trying to say or writing what you think the speaker should have said. Now, instead of doing that, replay a certain part or a certain point of an audio as often as you can and try to listen keenly. And as you try to decipher the speech, make sure you're using the subject matter to guide you. So if the topic of discussion is football, try to make sure that what you type is making sense to football or kind of related to the topic. Now, doing research using the subject matter will also help in reducing mishears in your transcripts. So, first round of proofreading is done. Let's go to the next step. Step number 6 is listening to the audio again while proofreading and editing your transcript a second time. Do you know why you have to listen to the audio multiple times? It's because the more you listen to it, the clearer it becomes. It's very normal to not hear something the first time you listen to the audio, but correctly hear it when you listen to the audio the 5th or the 6th time. And this is a very effective strategy in producing a highly accurate transcript. So listen to the audio while you read through the transcript word for word, making sure every statement makes sense and that everything has been transcribed and spelled correctly. Correct any errors you find and do further research if you are not sure about something. This is also a good time to break long paragraphs into smaller ones and make sure your transcript looks good, like it's neat and very presentable. So once step number 6 is done, don't assume that your work is now 100% and click submit. First, use Grammarly and Microsoft Word spelling and grammar checker to ensure that basic words have been spelled correctly. Now, it's very normal to proofread a transcript a couple of times but still miss things like double spaces and basic spelling mistakes, and this is why softwares like Grammarly exist. Now, a quick word of caution: don't just go implementing every Grammarly suggestion, only make necessary adjustments. My advice is to only remove double spaces and check for basic spelling mistakes when using Grammarly. Don't go into changing sentence structure and I don't know what. And now you are ready to click submit. Kindly note that you won't have the whole time in the world to do all this, so everything should be done quickly depending on the amount of time you have. Don't spend hours researching just one word, one phrase. Time management is key, and I don't think I can teach you that in this video. So stay alert when transcribing. You should actually set alarms so that you can do everything in time. You can follow the steps in this guide when working on transcription jobs as well, because they are not just applicable to transcription tests only. The only difference might be you won't have to listen to an audio to its entirety before you can start typing. Now, I really hope this video has been helpful helpful. Feel free to always refer to it when you're doing a transcription test or when you're working on transcription jobs. And like this video if you haven't already. And if this is your type of content, then subscribe to join this community. Thank you so much for watching. Tess out.